o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024, The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now, this video is going to be answering the question, what gives people the right to make laws in the first instance? In the first place, how do we even have the authority to make laws and maybe take away somebody's liberty to do what they want to do? So, what gives people the right to make laws in the first instance? So, let's go through it. I'll go step by step. Okay. First, self-ownership. We come into this world owning ourselves. I know the parents own us or control us for the first, it's hard to say how many years, 12, 13 years for sure. But then slowly we should gain that authority. But at age 18, at least in our society, we've chosen 18 as a decision or the deciding point when we become more responsible for our own responsibilities. I think it should be a 13 to 18 transition, slow transition. But self-ownership is what gives us the right to own ourselves and say, I own me and you cannot harm me. But what if somebody does? Well, every person desires to keep what they make. Well, let me go back. What if somebody harms us? Then we can harm them back. They don't have the right to do it. What's going on there? But let's go with something else first before I even get there. Every person's desire to keep what they make. So ownership. If I make a boat out of some logs and then somebody just comes over and takes that boat I made so I can go out fishing and try to provide for me or provide for my family, or I go fishing and I get some fish, I bring it back to my family and somebody comes over and takes it. Well, I own I own me and I own what I make. I own what I create, but there needs to be laws surrounding that. We need to have expectations surrounding that. I agree with everybody else that you don't harm me and I won't harm you. But we need laws surrounding that. Everyone's decision to respect every other person's ownership rights means that they can be so theirs can be respected at the same time. I think I wrote that wrong. Everyone's decision to respect others people's ownership rights so theirs can be respected as well. So, if I'm going to respect your right to keep the fish that you just caught, but what if you caught the fish that I think was mine from that lake? Or I think that, hey, you're one person, there's 10 people around here, and you caught half the fish in the lake. Everybody should get 1/10 of those fish. You're out there catching them left and right, and we're going to deplete that whole lake. Well, who has ownership rights? We need to have laws surrounding that. Okay. Rules or laws about ownership must follow so people can have clear expectations. Now, if we can just say the non-aggression principle, hey, I won't harm you, you don't harm me, and everything will just work out. It doesn't work so easily. People have to have clear expectations. You are harming me by taking 5 fish out of that lake. There's only 10 fish in that lake, and you're harming me by taking 5 of them. There's 10 of us that need to eat fish. So ownership rights and clear expectations and what's best for society at large needs to come into place some. But let's keep on going a little bit farther. Rights and liberties must also be respected. So I'm not going to stop you from saying what you want to say as long as it's not slander. But when does it become slander? Am I allowed to say that this company is rotten and has roaches all over their restaurant when it's not true? I just harmed their business. If it's a lie, if it's not a lie, what am I allowed to say? When am I not allowed to say it? We need laws surrounding that type of thing. Am I allowed to associate? What if I'm associating in such a manner that I'm saying us 5 people are going to go and destroy these other 5 people on this small island? Am I allowed to associate with them? Or just not allowed to associate and then conspire with them to do harm to the other 5 people? But what if we're conspiring to protect ourselves against 5 people who are trying to harm us? Where's those dividing lines? We need to have clear expectations. People's liberties come into conflict. My right to run a restaurant comes into conflicts with your right to say what you want to say about. I had 1,000 mice running through my restaurant, where you saw one mouse at the back of the parking lot. So you lied, you slandered, you harmed my business. So there's a lot to be said about clear expectations and where those lines are drawn. And we need to have laws surrounding that. Rules and laws about rights and liberties must follow so people can have clear expectations. As the population grows, more conflicts happen. When you only have 10 people on the island, and let's say it's a good square mile island, people have enough room to spread out. But what if one pig runs from one person's quote unquote piece of land to another? But it was my pig. I raised the pig. I nursed the pig to health or whatever. I fed the pig. I kept the pig, but he escaped and got somewhere else. What if he did damage over at somebody else's land? He ate their food that they were growing in the garden, or destroyed something. Are they allowed to take my pig? Are they not allowed to take my pig? There needs to be laws and a judge, and all that needs to emerge. And the more people that grow up in society, with 10 we can kind of manage it on our own. But when it becomes 100, a lot more conflicts. When it comes 1,000, then 10,000, then 100,000. There's cities out there with 1 million people. There's a lot of conflicts, and people are going to say, no, I get to say what I want to say. No, I get to associate with what I want to associate with. No, I need this power so I can have this smokestack blowing major pollution into your land. And other people say, no, you're harming me. As more people, as the population grows, more people are here, more conflicts come in, and more it gets a lot more complicated. So rules and laws are needed to get more detailed expectations. People join together to hire a cop, hire a judge, and a soldier. So the bottom line, I think I got it in a minute, but the bottom line is people who are own land. Let's say the 10 landowners of this island, of the 10 people, there's 10 people on an island, each one of them have a portion of the land, and they were between 5 and 15% of the land. They take care of their land, but what happens when somebody doesn't take care of the land? And that piece of farmland over there is going unused, and it's just garbage and trashed. They're not managing it. Is somebody else allowed to go farm over there and take that land? When we moved out west, I say we, Americans, 1700s and 1800s, they started moving out west through Kansas, through the middle of the country. And when they populated an area, there were rules about you can have this piece of land, but you had to go to the court. You had to deed that piece of land. You had to take care of that land. If you left that land for a certain amount of time, somebody else could move in. If somebody else moved in and built on it, it becomes their land. Unless you got the law involved and said, no, I'm protecting my rights. There were rules about that. We cannot just let it just be, we're not going to aggress against each other and think that's going to be good enough. We need rules about who owns what and when ownership has to transition. What if I just do a minor transgression against you? I do a little punch on your arm or whatever. Can you sue me for everything I have and you take a very expensive house that I have? Well, that's way too much. So, but on the other hand, I beat you to a pulp and you can't work for a year and you barely survived, and they only give you a fine of $2 or $3. Very, very minor fine. That's not fair either. What is the fair? We need rules surrounding that. So people join together. People who own this land can join together and say, we're going to have these rules. That's what gives us the authority to have rules in the first place. Man has thousands of years of experimentation. America was a breakthrough to a better standard of living and increased liberty. No doubt about it. Our stronger military, our freedom of speech, our freedom of religion was a huge one. Freedom of commerce, free enterprise was huge in developing and getting our standard of living so much higher. And but our ability to have freedom of association, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, all those things was huge in getting us a better standard of living, greater liberty, and just a better life, better society. But can we do better? I take all the things that we have done in America that's going well, and I keep those. I do much more division of power. I do much more checks and balances. I do a lot more accountability. I give everybody the chance to have representation in a CRA and a RA, rating agency, or a competitive regulatory agency. And that comes with real power, real representation. And that's super important. There are many concerns related to America slipping away from what created liberty, freedom, and wealth. We're going way too much big government. In 2000, we went from like maybe 40, 41, 42% of GDP being controlled by government to probably well over 50%. It might go back down now that the pandemic is a little bit over, but in very big ways, we're keeping way above 50%. They're having way too much control. And that's going to take away from our standard of living. Now, our standard of living is growing so much, and it's going to continue to grow. So it's very hard to say would have grown more or grown less. So it's still going to grow, but we can have a better standard of living, more liberty, with more free enterprise. Haley 2024, the movement, the reforms, the CRA movement, maintains and grows a separation of powers, much greater accountability, much better representation, greater free enterprise, a better rule of law, a lot better due process, a lot better due process, a greater respect for all the liberties within the current Constitution. It maintains the three branches of government, the three levels of government, but it introduces a new foundational building block to liberty of competitive governance. That's so incredibly important that is a new idea that's going to I forget the word, how to say it, be revolutionary in governmental reform by having competitive governance. The added benefits of competitive governance is the great addition to what everything else America did. And it's going to stop the decline in liberty that we currently are at. The bottom line is people join together. Landowners, people who own this country, citizens can be considered, I consider it a citizen ownership model of government. At least my structure is. So the bottom line, people join together to make rules for the land they jointly own. Ownership, both land and possession, is an original and an innate right. Okay, that's it for that one video. I just want to talk about what gives us the right to make laws in the first place. How do we get away from the non-aggression principle? Now, we don't violate it because everybody that wants to be in this land has to sign a social contract. Otherwise, we use our ownership rights as citizens of this country to say, you have to abide by the rules or you're not allowed to live here. I know that's super controversial in some instances, and there's good arguments against it. But it has to start somewhere. You can say, well, I've never had to sign a social contract before, and it's against my rights. Well, your rights are being violated significantly right now through our current government with 30, 40, 50% government control over what you're doing, what you're not allowed to do. The number of economic transactions and economic business models you're not allowed to try. It's being violated right now. This is going to a much less violation of your rights. So, please consider a donation for Haley 2024, the movement. Take a look at the full CRA structure and the reforms I have going. from welfare to charities to free enterprise education to free enterprise military and free enterprise police. Much greater accountability. So, until the next video.